Uncle Amos was a radical one. Uncle Amos would cuss you out in the church. So, when Pastor Baker and I get together sometimes, we work off each other. He say the things that I want to say that I can't say because he's radical. And I'm more like Robert. So I say, okay, Amos, go ahead and tell him. And he know what I mean when I say that. So he can say things that I want to say and that I can't say. But Uncle Amos was radical. One night they was having a conference and they were voting on the pastor. And the lady who was the president of the choir, her name was Miss Mamie Miller. And Miss Mamie got up in the church and said something about the pastor because she didn't want him. And whatever she said, my uncle stood up and he said, Mamie, you just a D-lie. He didn't use the word D, but that's what he said. So he was known to cuss and didn't think nothing about it. But that particular time of year, September, October, November, in the Black Baptist Church became called hog killing time. Yeah. And those of you that don't know anything about hog killing, it's in the cool of the year when they kill hogs, because a lot of times they didn't have good places to store the meat and everything. So they said they were synonymously calling pastors and getting rid of pastors just like you were killing hogs. So if you ever hear some of the old folks say hog killing time, what they mean is getting rid of the pastor. That's what that meant, okay? Then there was something called annual homecoming. They still pretty much do that in a lot of the local black churches here. And that particular day was held on a particular Sunday. So the church was the first Sunday church. In August, first Sunday in August is homecoming. If you were second Sunday church, you were second Sunday. Peace Chapel was the third Sunday church, so homecoming was the third Sunday in August every year. Now, one of the good things that happened with that was the people who had moved from Conyers to places like Columbus, Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, Chicago, Detroit, because they went there for a better job, they would come back home. They would take their vacations where they could come back home for homecoming. And see, when they show up in church, they could get a chance to see all their family without traveling all around to see everybody. Because they knew that in that week's time they weren't going to get a chance to see everybody. But if they went to church on that Sunday, they would get a chance to see all of the cousins, aunts, and uncles and everything. And so that was the annual homecoming. And then I remember my grandmother preparing for homecoming. And she would cook that Saturday before homecoming. And many times she would bake cakes. And she knew that Aldren and I couldn't wait the Sunday to eat the cakes. So she made something that was called a test cake. Okay? Now, how she did this was very ingenious. She would make the batter up because she had a big spoon because she didn't have a mixer and had a big pan. And she would take the eggshells from the eggs and she would take the batter and put it on the inside of the eggshells. And she would put the big cake in there and then she would put the eggshells in there. Let them bake both the same amount of time. And then when the cake was done, she would give Aldren and I the cake that was in the eggshells. And we could crack them open and, and get them out of there. So that was the test cake. And so that's what she would do to keep us satisfied while she was cooking the rest of the cake and everything, because she wasn't going to cook that big cake for us. Now, on those homecoming days, there was something else going on. There was not only preaching going on, but there was some economic development going on as well. Okay, so what is the economic development? Where out in the woods of the church, there was where the bootleggers made their money. They would sell liquor out of the back of their cars. And they would sell them and put it in cups, put it in, 7-Up bottles so you wouldn't know what it was and everything. And then they would have an evening meeting around 3 o'clock. And a lot of folk would be in there sweating because of drinking that liquor during the time that everybody was feeding. Now, who was buying this liquor? The church folk, the deacons, the pastors, liquor. Preachers, everybody was buying that liquor. Now, one of the things you had to get a bootlegger's credit for this now, because at the evening program, they would always give some of their proceeds to the church. Now you know what I want to say here is that they gave a profit. I don't know how much they gave. If they made a couple $100, they probably made a donation of $100 to the church. And back then, one person giving $100 to the church, that was a lot of money. And brother so-and-so was a hero because he had, given all of that money. Now, black churches have always been have been supported by what we call fundraisers, okay? Members sold chitlins, chicken plates, fish plates. They even played something that's called the bug. And I'm going to say this, and some of y'all ain't know what the heck I'm talking about, okay? The bug was the previous lottery system. You could put a nickel, you could put a dime, 25 cents on a particular number, and when it failed, you would get paid off. They had some people who were called bookies, and what they would do, they would collect the money, they would take it downtown Atlanta, and somebody else would take care of it. There was a place on Alabama Street in downtown Atlanta, and Aubrey and I were laughing about this the other day because my uncle used to play, and I loved when he hit, because I was living with him, and he would always give me extra money when he hit. Well, anyway, there was this barber shop or something, and that's where he went and played. And so Aubrey said, no, that's where he paid his insurance. So that's what they call it. I gotta go pay my policy. Okay, well, I don't know how it worked, but it worked off the stock market. And back in that day, the Constitution, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the AJC, it came out twice a day. The Constitution came out in the morning and the Journal came out in the evening. And when the evening came out, it had the numbers from the stock exchange. And my uncle tried to show me how to read it, but that's how you would determine what numbers failed. And that's how you got paid off based on the stock market. So that's what they did to help support the church, okay? Another thing that a pastor friend of mine, he's pastoring in Philadelphia. And he said one of the old sisters told him, said she said it with a whole lot of pride. She said, we built this church with chicken, selling chicken, and laying on our backs. Now, y'all got to figure that out later. I know. So the church has always had an economic plan, a development plan to make it work. But the pastor and the deacons and nobody questioned where this money was coming from. There was one lady who played the bug one time, and she gave her mother some money, and her mother was saying, I don't see how y'all can spend that money, that money this, and she was talking about how bad it was sinful money and all this kind of stuff. And she waited a little while, and she said to her mama, she said, a little while later, she said, Mama, what did you do with that money I gave you last week? She said, well, I bought a dress with her. She said, did you have any problem spending it? She said, no, why? She said, that was bug money. So mama was cursing the money out, but she didn't have no problem spending it. And so the church didn't have no problem doing that either. So the church has always done that, all right? Now, one of the things that I'm getting hopefully closer to the end, that when it comes to politics, the black church has always been the central point for politics. That's where everything happened in the black church. If you wanted to know anything, you had to come to the black church, you had to come there, and you found out what was going on everywhere, and that's where all the information flowed. So in later years, especially here in Rockdale County, white people who have started running for office, they've also learned that if they want to get the black vote, they got to come to the black church. They're going to come. They're going to show up. Those who really want to win, they're going to show up at some point in time. Then there was something called annual revivals. The annual revivals were always held a week after the homecoming. It was a whole week-long service. And at that time, my grandmother and grandfather would host the pastor and the guest evangelist. They stayed at their house the whole week because there was no Motel 6, no Holiday Inn, Holiday Express, and all that kind of stuff, and Hampton Inn, the Daisy, and all that. But none of those places for them to stay. So they had to stay in somebody's house. And so what would happen is they would get up in the morning, and they would go to one of the sisters' house, and she would cook breakfast for them. And then around 4 o'clock in the evening, they would go to somebody else's house and they would fix what they called lunch at that time. And whoever was going to feed them at night brought a box to church at night. And then my mother and aunt and my grandmother, they would take that box back home, heat the food up, and give it to the pastor and the guests. All right. Now I mentioned this on Jubilee Day, and I'm going to talk about this just for a little minute. Talking about before I-20 was in Conyers. Now some of you have never seen Rockdale County without I-20. But I watched them build I-20 through Conyers. It was a 2-lane highway that went from Augusta to all the way to Atlanta. It was called US 278, okay? Now, we didn't have a whole lot of places to have a whole lot of activities, so therefore, we had to use the best we could, all right? Now, I didn't do this because my mother would have killed me if I did this. But some of the kids skated on the highway out there. Now, some of you have never seen it. These things had a key. You could let them in, adjust them and all that kind of stuff. And these things right here would hook onto the front of your soles of your shoes. All right? So this is how you would have some fun by strapping these things on. They weren't shoes. They were just, the back of the shoe fit back here. And you would skate on them. Well, one Christmas, Aubrey and I wanted so bad to get a pair of skates. Not these, but they were called something else. They were called pipe skates. And this particular Christmas, we got up that morning and I asked him, I said, did you get your pipes? And he said, no. He said, did you get yours? I said, no, I didn't get mine. So we meet at my grandmother's house every Christmas day, and that's where we got other gifts that our parents didn't give us. And so on this particular day, my aunt gave us clothes. We thought that was going to be the last place. If nobody else gave us the pipe skates, my auntie was going to get them. And so what she did was she gave us clothes that Christmas instead of pipe skates. So we were upset. My auntie got up a few minutes later, excused herself from the room, and she came back in and she had a box, and the box was leaning down like this. And we knew it was 2 boxes with nothing in those boxes but some skates. And they were pipe skates. And these are the pipe skates that she gave me when I was probably about 12 or 13 years old. I still got them. The pipes right here, on the bottom here, you could adjust them right here to slide them in and out. But these things right here remind me of what my aunt gave me when my parents would not get them. All right, let me move on a little bit forward. Okay. Okay, at the age of 12, I think it was, my grandfather started teaching me how to repair shoes. And some of you may have seen this picture on Facebook. I'm in the picture with my grandfather, teaching us how to repair shoes, and I'll let y'all pass that around. Aubrey's in the back, and I remember one time somebody had some very expensive shoes that might have been Flotions or something, and they wanted the soles replaced. And my granddaddy gave me a knife to cut the soles off, and not only did I cut the soles off, but I cut the inside part of the shoe right in here and split it. And I thought for sure that the man was going to get upset because I had cut up his good shoes. Most of the people that were in the shoe shop, the customers of the shoe shop were white people. Probably about 99.9% of the people that had shoes repaired were white people. So therefore, Aubrey and I got a chance to meet most of the most influential people in Rockdale County at the time. Not only did he fix shoes and that, but he sold fish. He sold mullet fish. It was 25 cents a pound. They came in every Thursday from Athens, Georgia. He sold cigarettes, he sold drinks, he sold cookies. And the shoe shop was where I learned a valuable lesson from a guy by the name of Johnny Shipp. He is the father of Pastor Chris Shipp. In the shoe shop, he taught me how, Attorney Washington, how to listen, how to not just speak before I had my thoughts in my mind, not just shoot from the hip. And what he would do was ask me a question about something, and I would just say something, and he said, how'd you come up with that? And he would challenge me on the things that I would say. And therefore, I learned to be a little bit more reserved when it came to speaking. Out of the shoe shop, Aubrey and I got some grass cutting jobs. Right across the street here is a apartment complex. Aldren and I used to cut the grass at that apartment complex and sweep the parking lot with push brooms, and they paid us $14. We split it, $7 each. So when Aldren graduated in 1966, I got the whole $14 by myself. So I didn't have to share it with nobody. So that's what we kind of did, all right? Now we'll move on to the college days. Then I'm almost wrapping this up. I told y'all the story about Mr. Hudson was going to put me out of the band because if I didn't show up for that May 30th, 1966 graduation. But one of the things that he promised me, he said, if you stick with me, I'm going to help you get a music scholarship to college. And y'all, I couldn't play that saxophone well enough to get no scholarship nowhere. So I thought he was just lying. I said, yeah, right. Well, he took me and another guy by the name of Robert Lee up to Morris Brown College to try out for the marching band at Morris Brown. Both of us flunked the sight reading test. So Mr. Hudson told me, he said, if the music is that hard, Cleophas Johnson will not be able to read it, so it can't be that difficult. So we both got partial music scholarships to Morris Brown because of David Hudson, my band director. The freshman year, I was able to go to two spectacular places. One, we went on a trailway bus. We traveled, I think it was like the Friday night, or Saturday before Thanksgiving in 1968. We went to Baltimore, Maryland. And there we played for the halftime show of the Baltimore Colts and the Minnesota Vikings. So that's how old that was, because y'all know the Baltimore Colts the Colts been out of Baltimore for years. The only thing I remember about Baltimore was this. They parked the buses on a hill right in front of the hotel, and the bus driver left the bus in neutral. And they started rolling back while some of us was unloading the bus. Some was getting stuff up under the bus, and I was up on the top. I froze, I didn't know how to stop the bus. The bus was rolling down, and one of the guys that was from New Jersey had the presence of mind to run up, jump up under the steering wheel, and stop the bus. Then we left there, we went to Macy's Thanksgiving Parade, okay? That was my first time ever being in New York City. Now here's a boy out of Conyers, Georgia, who's never seen a big city like New York in New York. They decided to do something I thought, and I think about this now, that was really courageous. They took 150 of us to a recreation center in Harlem, New York, during rush hour, okay? We got on subway trains. I had never been on a subway in my life. And we got on those trains and nobody got left. That was before cell phone. I didn't even know where we were going. So if I would have got left, I would have had no idea who to tell people that where I was trying to go. I didn't know. I just figured we were going to do this. But that's not the crazy thing about this. How many of y'all remember here the movie The American Gangster? Y'all remember that movie? With Denzel Washington? Well, during the time that movie portrayed, we were in New York running around in Harlem when all that stuff was going on. And so when I'm watching the movie, I see them throwing turkeys out the back of this truck that looked like a U-Haul truck, and they flashed up there Thanksgiving 1968. I said, gosh, I was in Harlem running around. But let me tell you how stupid I was. There was a guy who was the head of my squad. He was 2 years older than me. He was from Macon, Georgia. And this was on a Tuesday night. He said, Al, we going out on the town, okay? So he 2 years older than me. I'm 18, he's 20. Macon, Georgia now. They had been up there the year before. So we get on subway trains, going all over Harlem, going all in these nightclubs, and having communion in the nightclub. Yeah, y'all get that later. But I got so sick that Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I couldn't get out of my bed. And I said, Lord, Lord, help me get out of this bed because mother gonna know I'm not in that band on tomorrow. So I got up and I made it, and from that, not only did I go to Macy's, I went to Macy's twice, and I also went to the Tournament of Roses parade. January 1st, 1971, I was marching in the Rose Bowl parade. Here's a picture of the band marching in that parade. 6-mile-long parade. We had done a lot of running and practicing and everything for that parade. And I remember thinking, why we got to do all this running, because we're not athletes. But then I realized that at the beginning of the parade, at Rose Bowl parade, one of the things they did was this. They had the cameras at the front of the parade, Macy's is at the back. So I thought something is different than Macy's, because the cameras are at the beginning of the parade. Well, anyway, they rent seats down Colorado Boulevard to watch the parade. And in most parades, there's always a crowd here, and then you go down the street a little farther, and there's another crowd. So you don't have to play constant, but in the Rose Bowl parade, you have to play constantly. And like I said, it was like 6 miles long. They gave us a card, and they said, if you feel like you're gonna faint, you pull the card out and give it to one of the parade marshals dressed in white, and they would take you back to UCLA's campus, because that's where we stayed, and if you feel like you're gonna faint. So we were marching, and I'm tired. I run out of energy. This little white boy standing on the side of the road, he said, you only got 2 more miles to go. And I started reaching in my pocket for that coat or for that card, because I was not going to march no 2 miles. I was done. I didn't care whether I finished or not. I was not going to march 2 miles. We turned the corner, that was the end of the parade. So he was really messing with us. Okay, I've got a lot more I can talk about, but I'm going to cut it off at this point in time and just kind of ask, if there's any questions and answers about anything that I've said so far that you want me to answer. But I'm grateful for this time to be able to speak. I've never had this opportunity to talk about this much. So if there are any questions from anybody. Yes, sir.
Reverend Sadler, you talked about traveling back during that time period, and I was talking with my sister. They had a Black History program. You've heard of a book called Green Book.
Called what?
The Green Book.
I'm not familiar with it. Okay.
I've never heard of it.
I have a copy of it.
Can you tell us what it is?
The Green Book is a book that Black folks used back in the 30s when they were working in hotels. And there were places along the way, like coming from New York South, different cities. It has where you could stay, where you could eat, and all of that. And it used to be on the internet. I don't know whether it's on the internet now, but look, if you give me your email address, I'll look and see but I have a copy of it at home.
We'd like to, if you could bring it to display during our Black History program, if you've got a copy at home.
Okay, the copy I got is the copy I got off of the internet some years ago, but I don't know whether it's still there, but I copied it.
If you still got it.
The reason I was interested, because in my hometown in Virginia, there was a motel restaurant called Colebrook, and it was before the day of 95, Interstate 95 and 85, and it was where you went Route 1 going north, and Colebrook was on Route 1, and so that's where Black people had to stop and stay. So, and they have some places in Atlanta that you had to stay in, all going from the south, going north.
Yeah, what I was told too was that people who travel Route 66, I don't know how many of you remember the TV program that used to come on called Route 66. It was listed as the most dangerous highway for blacks to travel. It went from Chicago all the way out to California. And this Green Book was used to tell you where it was safe to stay, get gas, get food. And that was east-west. North-south, it was either 1 and 301.
Yeah, 1 and 301.
Those were the north-south, same thing,
Yeah.
same scenario.
Because
but just thought I'd So
Yeah, because as he recalls, when he was traveling from Georgia to Virginia, there were places that this was before the day of Interstate 85, there were little country places that you go through and they would give you a paper cup, you know, and if the waitress might have given you a glass, they'd break the glass after you drank out of it. Yeah, so it's, you know.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it back over to Gary, and then he's gonna go from here. Thank you.
Well, I told you that Reverend Sadler would provide the color commentary or the backstory to many of the facts and events that we may read of, but we don't know the backstory. And today he has told us about dirt basketball courts, a burned out school, secondhand school books, the importance of having our own newspaper, how it was moving to see our first band. He's talked about church protocol and what he has called economic development, and has really shared much of Rockdale's history with us, particularly as it relates to African American history. But today, in addition to that, we are honored to be part of history that is actually in the making. I see Mrs. Alicia Johnson in the back. If you would raise your hand.
Hi.
And you're there with your family?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Ms. Johnson has been an assistant district attorney here in Rockdale County for a number of years. And in January, effective as of January 1st, 2018, this year, she was appointed by the governor to be district attorney for Rockdale County. That is history for Rockdale County because she is the first African American and the first African American woman in doing it. I can say, having been on the other side of her in a couple of cases, she's an outstanding attorney, and we look forward to great things from her. So let's give her a round of applause. Now, Reverend Sadler has also told us about, let's see, arson, theft of paintbrushes, deception in the sale of cotton, spiking food with lemon tea and chocolate chip cookies, and building a church by burning it down, and his role in that conspiracy. Ms. Johnson, has the statute of limitations run on that? Reverend Sadler, I do have a question, then we'll open it up to other questions. I remember when we first talked, I was asking you, and I guess Ms. Johnson becoming the first African-American district attorney, we've had other offices in Rockdale where they're now being filled by African-Americans. I think we have 2 commissioners who are African-American, we have a clerk of court, and we have several judges who are African-American. But it wasn't always like that. Can you talk a little bit about what justice was like in the days before we had representation? How did we achieve justice?
That's a very good question. One of the things that I would mention is that, and sometimes it's kind of hard for people to understand it, and I mentioned the fact that there were relationships built with people coming into the shoe shop. So that's basically how it happened. Black people had to build relationships with whites in order to get things that were done for them. There's a guy that used to run a service station here. His name was Willie Hicks. And one of the deacons at my church that's deceased now, his name was Robert James Christian, and he worked for Willie Hicks. And Willie Hicks was his, overseer or whatever. He got into some trouble. He was coming down 278, and the state patrol was chasing him. And he said that if he could get to Mr. Willis' house, that would be the end of it. So he made it to Willie Hicks' house with the state patrol chasing him. And Willie Hicks told the state patrol to get out of his yard and not to bother Robert James. So that's how things were done. Let me tell you another thing. Throwing papers with that Atlanta Daily World, we threw the paper to a lot of bootleggers' houses. I knew where all the bootleggers were in Rockdale County pretty much. And I remember one time at this particular house, the house is still there, it's been modified, but the revenue agents or whoever they were came out to raid this black man's house because he was a bootlegger. Well, the sheriff at the time, and I can't remember his name, he knew where the guy buried the liquor. He stood on the spot where the liquor was buried while they searched all the property so that the guy would not go to jail. So it was because of relationships that people had built with various people in powers of authority. And when something happened, you went to those particular people and they took care of it. So that's why up until 2008, we didn't have any black people to vote for in Rockdale County for public office. So you had to get to know white people in order to get anything done. So you would vote for the people who represented you, who you thought would represent you, who you knew, who your family knew, who your family trusted. And that's how we did it. Now I know you didn't ask for this, but let me just share this because I was thinking about this morning and I forgot to put it in my notes. People in Rockdale County do not trust outsiders. The ones that grew up here do not trust people who come from the outside. And there is a particular city or state that people can come from. And once you mention that state or that city, flags go up. Red flags go up. And you're not going to be trusted real easily. And so therefore, the only way to get past that is to build a relationship with folk who grew up here, who've been here more than 20 years. And then when they say you're okay, then you'll be okay with everybody else. But you won't be accepted really. That's still happening even in 2018. Now, Peace Chapel Baptist Church, where I grew up, has never had a pastor that had a college degree. Never. And the reason being is they didn't trust people who had college degrees. And then when you come from this particular state that I'm talking about, and you start bragging about what you did, where you came from, they won't say this to you, but I'm going to tell you what they're thinking. If it was so great, why don't you go back to where you were? That's what they're thinking. So, I say it more than you asked for.
Can I please say that I'm a little older than Sadler? A lot of stuff he said, I know all these people and everything he was talking about. And I know a lot more about stuff that he didn't mention in these churches and all. But I want to say something about that, if you don't mind. Oh, I talk loud. They can hear me, I talk loud. Back in the day, a name meant something. And just like you were saying about that, even these policemen, sheriffs and all,